Welcome to People Stories Success. I'm your host, Coach Hassan, and it's my honor to welcome two guests today, Joe and Chris. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us on.
Yeah, glad to be here.
It's a pleasure. As I mentioned, that this podcast is about People Stories Success. So, guys, what I would like to do is just take a minute, and why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves to the audience?
Sure. So I am Joseph Snyder. I'm the CEO of Lannister Holdings and Lannister Development. We are a full stack blockchain development company based out of Phoenix, Arizona, and we are publicly traded on the US OTC market. Our vision and mission is to build the bleeding edge technologies that enterprise systems run on. We've built a decentralized organization building distributed technologies. What that means is we are a fully remote work publicly traded company. As far as I know, we are the only one in America. Wow. I don't think anybody else thought this was a great idea.
And that's your unique value proposition, right?
It's a unique value proposition. So I am a husband and a father and a serial entrepreneur, and just enjoying the journey and having the time of my life.
Welcome, Joe.
Thank you.
Chris?
And I'm Christopher Brown. I'm the CTO of Lannister Holdings. I'm also Joe's brother. We've been on this entrepreneurial journey together for close to a decade now, building various companies and doing all sorts of different fun things. I'm the CTO and technical lead of Lannister Holdings. I'm running and setting up Lannister Development, building teams to deliver on these distributed platforms that we're building at the moment.
Okay,
it's an incredible journey.
Oh yes, I'm excited to talk about it. And those of you that are watching this show on YouTube, Chris is traveling. That's why you don't see Chris. But we're really glad to have you both, guys.
We're going for a mystique. There is kind of what we're.
Right. Just fill in the blanks, right?
He's Charlie. He's Charlie.
We actually just don't want to scare your listeners. So it's better this way.
I think they've seen me already, so they've been scared already. So, guys, let's go back a little bit. I'm a big fan of just getting to know an individual. So let's talk a little bit about you guys growing up, your brothers. So that's kind of a unique thing there. Talk a little bit about your childhood, your upbringing, just whatever you like, whatever kind of stands out in your mind. Talk a little bit about your upbringing.
So, Chris and I were both brought up with an entrepreneurial mindset. We were both raised in an environment where, building your own way, developing companies and infrastructure. Our grandfather was a legal advisor and did a lot of corporate law. Our mom built her own company, her own portfolio of assets and investments several different times, as that happens in life. And so we both had a very unique set of experiences that showed us that the traditional method of, go to university, get a degree, get a good job, work 40 hours a week, wasn't necessarily the only way to do things. And from that, we took some different paths, Chris, and I'll let him speak for himself, but Chris went to the Air Force and then through ASU. I went into entrepreneurship very, very early. And had some successes, had some awesome failures that I wouldn't be the person or the businessman or that I am today without. So, we were definitely raised in an ecosystem where entrepreneurship was demonstrated, not just talked about. Mm-hmm. I remember reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was probably 10 or 11 years old, and Robert Kiyosaki is a brilliant man. I've always had a penchant for business. I remember going door to door selling, this is going to sound great, Selling potpourri roses when I was about 10 years old. And that happened because my sister-in-law got married.
Mm-hmm.
And I was probably 10 years old. And I remember being at the wedding, and they had centerpieces. And this is a thing, right? You have a centerpiece and you give them away to the people. There's one on every table, this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody at the wedding was just in awe of these potpourri roses. And it was a piece of lace that was stuffed with potpourri and put on a florist stem, right? And everybody was just enamored with them. And I thought, that's really interesting. So as a child, I grabbed a few of these, I took them home, I deconstructed them, and then I went and figured out how to put them back together. And so I made probably, 1,000 of these things with a sewing machine, and went door to door and sold them. And I think I ended up making like $4,200 or something as a 10 or 11-year-old. So
that's not bad as a 10-year-old.
That's not bad. You're doing pretty good. This buys a lot of baseball cards and bubble gum. And I think it was over, like 2 summers that I did that, because I wanted money. I wanted my own money, and I didn't want to have to ask for it. And I think that still drives me. So I'll shut up now and let Chris talk. But
Thank you, Joe. And by the way, where did you guys grow up?
California.
California. Okay. Chris?
Yeah, obviously very similar story, right? But mine was more technical. I've been a nerd my entire life. So I got my first computer when I was 11 years old, I believe. And that was back in like the AOL days, like, sign on, be a little punk kid to everybody and make my own little scripts to mess with other people's computers, and just, being a terrible child on the internet, which my parents thought was great because I was not being a terrible child out in the real world. So, in their eyes, that's perfect. So a little bit different of a journey overall there, because mine went more technical. My entrepreneurial experience started with playing video games online. I found out you could sell like gold and stuff on the internet and on eBay and stuff to other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually funded my own trip to Australia when I was 17 by selling gold off of EverQuest and World of Warcraft, both of which I made by automating both of the games and allowing them to just sit there and make the money for me, and then I would just sell it on eBay. And, hopefully my accounts didn't get banned before I sold it, but it worked out and I made a bunch of money. And then similar sort of thing. So I went into the Air Force. I wanted to go into the military mostly just to pay for my college, because it seemed like the best way to do it, and also seemed like a good way to get experience in life. So from there, I went into the Air Force, did my time there, and then got my university paid for. So I went to ASU and got a double degree in biochemistry and computational mathematics, which sort of kept with the theme of being an uber nerd. And yeah, so I've built lots of little products. We've sold some companies. We've sold some different pieces. I've done growing up, being a teenager, I did lots of work for my neighbors and my mom and my mom's friends and everything, of fixing their computer and being the kid that for some reason knows how these things work. But that all comes together, right? So Joe's really got the business sense of setting up the companies and running through the legal side and talking to people and doing sales and all this other stuff. And I have the technical side of how do we build these things? How do we automate these systems? What's actually possible? What's the difference between, can you tell me the weather in Yosemite, and can you tell me what species this bird is, right? Like there's very different problem sets there that you need to understand and know how they operate and how they work and what's feasible. So it really works as a combination there of building technical products, building technical companies, finding ways to do things more efficiently, which is sort of the goal with our technology mindset, really.
Okay, so you guys were kind of doing your own thing, and at what point did you come together and start working together? Was it a while back, or was it something fairly recently?
That was a while ago. We had a risk management business that we built up over about a decade, and it was one of those things that and prior to that we were both doing real estate investing. Some of that overlapped, some of it didn't. Nothing really formal and structured, but with the risk management business, there's a lot of technological implications that really allow you to stand apart in those fields. And so Chris was able to come in and really deploy things that allowed our businesses to stand out. Mm-hmm. And, I was pretty focused on acquisitions. We were looking to scale through acquisitions, and in that industry, that's the cheapest way to go, which is an interesting, reality in some industries. It's literally more expensive to go market for clients than it is to just acquire swaths of them. Mm-hmm. So, that really started us working together in a formal structure. That was, I don't know, 10 or 12 years ago.
Yeah, sometime there.
Okay. And so your current initiative, the Lannister Holdings, I believe it's called. Mm-hmm. So how long ago did you found that, and how long ago did that get started?
Well, we had started, so we exited the risk management business a few years back. Mm-hmm. I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I'd have to look, but we exited that a few years ago, and Chris and I collectively did kind of all of the things that you do at that point in your mid-30s. We went to Guatemala and climbed Mayan pyramids. We went to the Bahamas and went scuba diving with sharks.
Nice. That could be a podcast interview of its own.
And all those, Chris went, eating piranha in the Amazon, all of the things that we do. And so, as a matter of fact, my daughter Lana, she's 13 now, but she's a certified scuba diver as well as we are. And so she went scuba diving with sharks with us in the Bahamas and all that.
Oh, wow. Nice.
It's a great story and an amazing thing for an 11-year-old to achieve. That time, I think, what did we last, Chris? Like 90 days before we were just totally bored.
It doesn't last very long before you're like, all right, I need to be doing something, right? Like, not necessarily, I need income because we sold a company, but what do you do, right? I mean, I've traveled quite a bit in my life. Like I said, I did all of that work to automate gaming systems to make me money just so I could fly to Australia when I was 17. I mean, not just so. The money's nice to have. But the goal was there of travel. So I've traveled quite a bit around the world at this point. And, after an exit, you get to go travel, you get to do what you want, you get to go, explore Mayan pyramids and all this cool stuff. And then you're just like, well, what am I doing?
Where's the challenge?
Yeah. I gotta build something. I gotta do something new. I gotta
some soul searching there, right, guys?
Yeah. Absolutely right. Okay. And so that led us to an interesting series of questions, because at that stage of our lives, we had a fairly deep set of experiences behind us. We had the ability to decide how we were going to move forward. And so what Chris and I did about 3 years ago, I guess it is now, is we sat down and we tactically identified the things that we thought we really needed to know as internal core competencies for the next iteration of what we wanted to do. And so there was some pieces to that, public relations, digital strategy, digital messaging. On my end, I have always wanted to take a company public. I know that's kind of a weird goal for a 12-year-old kid, but I had it, and it never left. I'm in my late 30s now, and I've, I get to be having achieved that goal and living that journey at the moment, which is fantastic. Mm-hmm. But so, there was this conscious decision that we made from my side to go work with some companies in the public space that were doing mergers and were doing some things and take some consulting jobs. We also took work and consulting work around the digital marketing and digital messaging sides of the world, because we believe if we really need to learn something, then we should find somebody to that we can serve and that we can help, who allows us to learn more about those subjects, right? And that's a win-win. And while I spent some time doing that, Chris really went down the rabbit hole on the bleeding edges of technology. And I'll let him talk about that, but that led us to working in the blockchain space, specifically among some IoT and some machine learning stuff, swarm robotics, but specifically for blockchain. We were able to really identify that the impact and the scalability and the multifaceted multi-vertical disruption points that we see that these technologies can hit. So with that, Chris?
I mean, yeah, that's essentially where it went. We sort of built a company that we could use to learn the things that we wanted to learn, that we thought were interesting, first of all, and useful and valuable second. Not that that's really second, that's first when you're building a company. But, we want to learn, we want to grow, we want to do something amazing. So part of that was we built a software consulting company. Joe's talking about we're doing M&L consulting or M&A consulting, marketing type consulting, stuff like that. We were able to spin off a lot of those customers into actual software clients. Okay. Because digital marketing is, there's, put ads on Facebook and Google and Bing and let them run. But the real side of digital marketing is building something that attracts users and makes them sign up for what you want, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot more technical side to it than just start running ads and get traffic and bada bing, you're a millionaire. It doesn't actually work that way. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it does, you if it does.
But overall,
it doesn't actually work that way. So, building these systems, you start doing little pieces of web development, which is it's just web development. But as you get into these clients' backends and start seeing what they're doing, what their processes are, and how they're handling these leads and how they're handling these people, and what their infrastructure looks like and what their sales process looks like and all this stuff, you start to find pieces and you come to them and say, or we would come to them, being the kind of people we are, and say, look, here's what we think is a current roadblock for you guys. Here's your user flow, here's your client flow, here's your sales funnel. But this piece right here seems like it's breaking, right? Like, you're failing to follow up within 10 minutes of a lead coming. Why is that? What part of the system doesn't work for that? Mm-hmm. So building that really built a base of trust for a client base that we had already built. So we started building software products for them. And in doing so, we actually created a software consultancy company. Now, I have a background in, like I said, computational mathematics, software development. I've actually worked as a professional software developer in another company, sitting in a cubicle in an office. Mm-hmm. It's not something I like doing. I hopefully never do again. Not the development part, but the sitting in an office part. I love building new things, and software makes it really easy to build awesome stuff. So transitioning into that, we were able to come to these clients and be like, hey, here's some things we can build for you. Let's test them out, see how they go, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. From that, we were able to build a network. Everybody knows somebody who needs something. So all of our clients would go out to their friends and say, hey, I know you need this. Joe and Chris built us this and it works really well, blah, 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 the normal networking sort of effect there. In doing that, we started working in some machine learning stuff, a lot of cloud development stuff. And as we were doing that, my interest in cryptocurrencies and blockchains and stuff was peaking, right? And this is before Bitcoin went to $20,000 and everybody thought it was the panacea of technology. And there are actual use cases for these things and actual implementations that are very interesting and kind of awesome.
So was this the when Bitcoin was kind of pennies or a few dollars?
I think it was in the couple $100s at this point.
Okay, so it's very early.
2 to 3 years ago. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and we're still. I mean, if you're talking about Bitcoin, it's sort of out of my personal risk profile for investment, right? The ups and downs are steep, shall we say?
We're in one of the downs at the moment. I'm in San Francisco at the moment, and I was at a meetup with Michael Arrington and Tim Draper and some of the guys that are really at the forefront of the cryptocurrency side of the industry. And there's a lot of talk about where it is at the moment, for sure.
So a quick question for you guys. So if somebody that's listening or watching this and who doesn't know anything about cryptocurrency or blockchain, two different things, how would you explain it to them, in maybe a few sentences? Is there an easy way to do that? I think that seems to be a challenge, right?
Yeah, it's a distributed secured ledger. Right. So any transaction, anything you do, there's a ledger, right? Even your checkbook. I don't know if anybody actually uses a checkbook. I don't even have one. But anybody who's old enough to know what a checkbook is, it's a ledger of transactions, right? It's just a list of transactions. So it's just a secured distributed ledger of transactions or anything else, any sort of data that you want to put in there. So every block, so we're saying blockchain. So every block is a block of transactions or a block of data. You can imagine a snapshot of data or, a state of a database. And the chain is a linkage between every block, saying that the current block, the ID of the current block is based on the ID of the previous block, right? So every block's ID has to match the previous block, which creates a chain, an unbreakable chain. That's a cryptographic secured chain. So that if any of the transactions previously in the chain are changed, the rest of the chain is now invalid, which means that the actual transaction list is no longer true. So just like your checkbook again, if we went back 5 transactions and erased it and wrote, $50 instead of 100, the rest of that chain in your checkbook is no longer true. Now, somebody just reading the top 3 transactions doesn't actually know that. They think you have an extra $50 in your account, when you don't. Mm-hmm. The way that this blockchain solves that, or the idea there is that if you see the top block, if you know the hash of the top block, and you compare it against the previous block, if any other block in that chain is nefariously changed, those top blocks are no longer valid, and you very quickly know that, and your data is no longer valid.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Makes some sense. Maybe Joe has a little
no, and that's the absolute correct answer. And I think one of the things that we've gotten great traction with media like yours, Asan, is that Chris does a phenomenal job of explaining that in a way that people who are drinking their coffee can go, okay, yeah, I get that. I would add to that a couple of things. First of all is I like to explain it like a real estate transaction, right? What does a title company do when you open an escrow? They go inspect a chain of title, right? They are looking at all of the previous data, all of the previous records, previous liens, existing mortgages, everything that has occurred on a chain of events for this piece of real property, right? And so what blockchain allows is an inspection of a chain of title in real time, with a lot of transparency, a lot of speed, and in a risk mitigated way. And so that has huge implications for insurtech, for fintech, for logistics, for healthcare verticals, where our systems and our processes that operate around us all of the time are essentially transfers of data and transfers of contracts between disparate parties, right? And we have thousands of these engagements every single day that we interact with Facebook, we interact with Instagram, all of the, and I can't even think of all of the other ones, right? When you're interacting with your car, right? There's a data stream that is compiling in your car of actions that the vehicle is being put through based on what you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a chain of data for all of these things. One of the questions that we get asked a lot is, how are people going to see blockchain, disrupt their life? And the reality, I think, is that we all have a cell phone, right? And when you go push a button on your cell phone, you open your phone, you can make a call, you can push on an app, right? If you open Angry Birds, for example, you can pull back the little red bird, it can fly forward, it can hit the green pig, right? We all know that can occur by taking those actions. What we don't see is all of the technology and all of the code and all of the systems that are running behind that application and behind that phone, that's both hardware and software, to make that process happen.
Okay. Right?
It's magic. And as modern day humans, we accept that magic as something that is going to work continually on our behalf. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm about to get on an airplane and fly back to Los Angeles, and I'm trusting a lot of systems, a lot of different systems to work really, really well to take me from San Francisco to Los Angeles, right? And blockchain's a lot like that, where we see it from an enterprise integration and from a systems and processes and a risk mitigation side being integrated, and as Web 3.0, which we believe that it is, we've staked our flag there, But we believe that these systems are, and they are being adopted at an incredibly rapid rate through small companies, mid companies, all the way up to the super big guys, and governments all over the world, and tax bases and all these things. But we believe that blockchain over the next 18 months, 36 months, gets integrated into the back end of our operating lives, into the back end systemization of our contractual lives, and the way that we do business, the way that we inspect what we expect in all of these different verticals. And so that's why we formed Lannister. So to kind of answer your previous question, which we never actually answered, so at the end of last year, Chris and I had spent this time doing this kind of consultative work, getting paid for it, which is great, and watching it kind of transform and evolve and scale. And we had our kind of aha moment that, this is truly scalable. And this is a massive blue ocean, not so much from a cryptocurrency side. Yes, we have the technical capabilities to build cryptocurrencies, even custom blockchains, private blockchains, all the way to, just token use cases running off of Ethereum for, maybe a small business conglomerate or a 2 or 3 party logistics, integration, something like that. But that this was truly something that had a vast blue ocean in front of it. And we didn't really see a lot of competition, to be totally honest, in the space. People coming out and saying, we see how this impacts existing infrastructure and existing business. And we see how this connects with IoT. We see how it connects with, cloud-based applications, and how it solves pieces of an existing system, right? And so that's when we made the conscious decision to form Lannister Holdings, and we executed a reverse merger. So we acquired a company that was already publicly traded, a company called No Borders Inc. So we are now currently publicly traded on the OTC market under the ticker symbol NBDR. We remember that by, hey, we went public, no big deal, right? NBDR, no big deal, right? So, you today can go on E-Trade or Schwab or whatnot and look us up. You can Google NBDR and what our stock price is, what our market valuation is. And that's a whole other conversation. It's a lot of fun. For me, everybody else goes, wait, that's fun. But that was our defining moment to look at the space and say, this is a sector that we have a core belief about as Web 3.0. This is a sector that we believe is absolutely primed and ready for true enterprise integration, government level development, government level integration, Fortune 500 company integration. When you see Walmart coming out with their own blockchains, and Chase, and IBM's a huge proponent, right? They've got a huge division working on client facing, which is also what we're doing. And so we staked that claim. And we formed a new company. We gathered a founding round of investors to help us finance the acquisitions and the legal work that goes into to this part of a journey.
Yes.
And we've been building out really a scale team. Going from hey, we're a few guys with a few developers and some cool clients, and we're having a lot of fun, to, hey, okay, we want to build this into a true infrastructure play and a true enterprise level project. And so we've been very, very blessed that the most amazing people have come to join our team, have come to join our advisory board, to lend their insights, to lend their power, to lend their passion into our vision. And we're very, very humbled by that. And it's an absolute amazing journey. So the market seems to like the idea, so that helps. Yes. We've got some positive responses as far as our current valuation and things like that go, and so we're very, very, very happy.
And that's a lot that you're going through right now. So you acquired this company, you're working on the blockchain. So tell us a little bit about your current goals. Just briefly, at a high level. Tell us, you have this company, you acquired this company, right? So what is the mission, vision, and goals, some of the goals of the company?
Yeah, so our mission is to help create, first of all, we're based in Phoenix, Arizona, and we're based in Arizona strategically. We are a fully decentralized operation, which means that we don't have an office, an actual office anywhere in the world. The entire team runs on MacBooks and phones. And so that's very interesting, but we're tactically located in Arizona because of the regulatory environment there.
Okay.
Arizona's governor has signed the blockchain sandbox that allows us to deploy fintech products and things in the real world on blockchain. Also in Arizona, signatures, personal signatures are legally recognized on blockchain. So you can actually sign a blockchain contract as a person, and it has legal enforcement, so legal validity. So we're strategically located in Phoenix. One of our company missions is to help propagate and support making Phoenix the blockchain tech hub of the United States. So, I'm in San Francisco at the moment, and San Francisco is I would say the financial hub of all technology for America at least. Yes. You can go to New York, and that's the financial hub of commerce. New York and London for traditional business. You can go to Los Angeles, and all of these cities kind of have this. Seattle. They all have this flag that's been planted, and Arizona has a very unique culture. There's a lot of really brilliant people coming out of university there, ASU, GCU, even like Mesa Community College has a certificate program for blockchain that they're working on. ASU has a blockchain law course that's coming out, I think, next semester. So there's a really solid legislative and regulatory support base in the state of Arizona, as well as an affordable cost of living. I don't know how people afford to live in San Francisco, to be totally honest with you. I think I was reading something the other day that the FHA or HUD, their low income identifier, which is based on median income for an area, their low income identifier for a HUD loan, and I don't know the government agency off the top of my head, I read it, but it's something like $117,000 a year in the greater San Francisco area. So you have to be over six figures to be poor here.
It gives you an idea, right?
It gives you an idea. And so the cost of living in Phoenix is really, really supportive to the startup cultures and and just the lifestyle. As long as you have a way of like leaving from July 15th to August 30th, where it's the surface of the sun. But no,
like June 15th, you mean?
June 15th. Yeah. There's like a 3-month one. Yeah. So all of those factors are why we're based in Arizona, and why our go-to-market strategy has been so Arizona centric. I don't know if I answered the question.
I think partially, but we're having a great discussion.
I think there's one piece that was left out there, which is really important, and that's generation of intellectual property. Right. So we're talking about a blue ocean space. We're talking about basically new technologies. I mean, realistically new technologies. And there's a lot of space there for development of intellectual properties. And that's one of our focuses as a development company, as a software development, as an infrastructure development company, is to look for the pieces that create valuable intellectual property and consult with our clients to create that intellectual property with our clients, with our legal team, with our advisors. Where does this fit? How do we write this up? How do we patent this? Where do we patent this? All those pieces come together to be a very, very high level value add to what we're doing.
So for our audience, can you give us an example of a client or a service or something that you are currently developing or are looking to develop, just so we get a kind of an idea, put some kind of visual in our head?
Sure. So I can talk about an internal use case that we're currently working on, and talking with partners about deployment, and then we can go from there. So we are building out in the state of Arizona specifically a master limited partnership, which is a syndicated real estate finance tool. Right. So these MLPs are used to acquire large pieces or groups of properties. you have a master limited partnership. So you have individual limited partners that come in and have an equity stake in the MLP, and there's a general partner who, and depends on the wording, but essentially you have a general partner who controls that group and who manages the assets and all that. And so we are working on building out the rest of the pieces around the master limited partnership on blockchain with a smart contract, and then on the limited partner side for the equity holding with a token use case. So it would be like small security token, groups around individual asset groups. And so that allows us to build technologies that are lower cost of maintenance and operations, automation of a lot of the systems and processes that go into managing the assets. And it adds a layer of transparency, a reduction of risk, and an added layer of liquidity for the investors that are coming in on the other side. And so that's an example of a use case that we're currently working on internally. Okay. I think, we've identified multiple areas and segments of just that one tiny sliver of existing, structure that have intellectual property implications. Right. And, the IP side of this is something that's very, very interesting, because right now what we're seeing is it's really a really broad blue ocean and almost a land grab in the intellectual property space around the blockchain technologies. Okay. And you've got a lot of the true believers from the crypto side who are going, oh, well, everything should be open source and everything. And it's like, no, I understand there's a lot of value to open source, but at the end of the day, Tesla went out and patented everything they could patent about the way that they're doing these things. And then Elon came back and said, hey, we're going to open source our patents, right? So, he didn't say, hey, here's all the things that we built and, just go play with them, Right. So, we have an operating ideology, top of mind development ideology for ourselves and for our clients. Our development teams have direct access to our technical copywriters and our legal. They don't have to go to management for approval to submit a process for a patent application. And depending on the way the client deal is structured and things like that, we will either kick that back over to the client, say, hey, our developers have identified this is a complete system. We believe this is a complete system and that's protectable, and you might want to do that for your vertical. And or depending on the contract, that will go through, our internal system, and our teams will kick it directly over to technical and directly over to legal and say, hey, let's go ahead and move forward on that. So we've really tried to build an ecosystem and a culture that is very, very mindful of the what we see as some of the missing pieces of value that traditional development will end up leaving on the table, for a client. And that we think is a really core differentiating factor for us.
So, you both are working with this cutting edge technology. Things are evolving and really probably on a daily basis, I would say, right? At this point, new things are happening, the blockchain. And so what are your predictions of short-term future? By that, I mean, let's say next month to 6 months, and then maybe long-term future. So with your level of expertise now, right? You're in this field doing it. Tell us a little bit about your predictions.
Man, I don't like predictions.
Yeah, my crystal ball doesn't actually work.
Yeah.
Or just your thoughts of where things may go. Let's put it that way.
We believe as an organization that blockchain as a technology is the Web 3.0 of how systems and operations and contracts get utilized and transacted moving forward. I believe that within the next 36 months, that transition really takes hold on the back end of systems and operating processes. The reason that I say that comfortably right now, and there's people out there that would come back with that and they would say, well, yeah, but cloud computing took billions and billions of dollars, and it took 12 years or 15 years to go from, to where it's almost ubiquitous, right? And that's very, very true. But there's a differentiating factor here, and that is that in order to scale cloud computing, not only do you have to have all of the disparate businesses and customers looking to say, yes, I trust this and I'm willing to put my stuff there, and I'm willing to transition off of my internal IT infrastructure over to cloud IT infrastructure, which is an area that Chris and I, it was lucrative. It's still not a bad space. But in order to do that, you had to have one or two or three players invest billions of dollars in infrastructure in centralized locations, right? And we're talking about the decentralization, right? So if Web 1.0 was the connection phase of the internet, right? Dial up, AOL, you get the disc in the mail. I got 1,000 free hours, right? Let's do. Yay, I'm connected. And Web 2.0 was the centralization of the internet, right? The Googles and the Amazons and the Facebooks. Mm-hmm. And then we believe Web 3.0 is the decentralization of the internet to a true peer-to-peer economy, right? In a real-time way. And in order to facilitate a peer-to-peer economy, you have to have trust, you have to have transparency, and you have to have security, right? Mm-hmm. So that trend, that series of events, if you look through those life cycles, tells us that this can be implemented at individual business levels, whereas something like cloud computing really could not. Cloud computing needed large, centralized players to come in and develop these massive pieces of infrastructure, this continual upgrade cycle on servers and all of this equipment. And blockchain does not. A small insurance company in Boise can build out a blockchain to operate their contracts and to inspect their claims processes. And, there's all of these disparate use cases just inside one small localized, state regulated insurance company. And they can come in and they can make a decision that is based on reducing their costs now, adding transparency to their systems now, reducing their unknown risks, right? If you're looking at the insurance business in particular, which, I have experience in, right? What is that? It's a risk mitigation business, right? How much premium can we get? How much ROI can we get on that premium? And what's our payout risk, right? And so the downside risk for an insurer is the unknown risk side, right? And so you can mitigate a lot of that. And finance, real estate finance, especially syndicated and back end like mortgage-backed securities, is a lot of the same way. You have financial assets that are being transferred over and over and over to disparate parties. We've all gotten a mortgage. We've all paid the mortgage payment for 3 or 4 months, and then we get a letter in the mail. ABC Bank no longer owns your loan. Now it's XYZ Bank, right? And, you don't really care. You're sending the same check, whatever. But there's a whole transaction that goes on the back end of there that has failure points when it comes to siloed data, or it has failure points when it comes to human engagement processes for these transactions, right?
And so blockchain can help with that.
Blockchain can help that, and it can help it in a really, really impactful way in the short term. And so businesses don't have to invest billions of dollars in order to have this long 10-year arcing ROI spectrum on a technology play. They're able to come in and integrate it in a smaller ecosystem. And so we see blockchain deployment coming through thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of kind of pinpricks around these industries. Standardization, is inevitable, right? You have sets of standards, right? There's a group called BITA, which is blockchain for transportation, and their focus, and we're working on joining them and having those conversations right now, of course.
Yes.
But their whole mission is the standardization of how blockchain is used in infrastructure and transport and logistics, right? So we see that deployment cycle being very decentralized, just like the technology, where you have thousands of individual players, hundreds of thousands of individual businesses and governments in different verticals, all taking these technologies and piecemealing them into the systems and operations that they already have, right? And that gives you the economies of scale without needing the massive upfront economies of capital that you would need to, say, build out the Google Cloud.
So at this point for your company, are you looking for investors and clients, or both, one or the other?
We are not currently fundraising at the moment. There are some things that we are looking at where we believe that we will have a very, very good reason to go to market and have a conversation with investors about why we think we need some additional scaled capital to do some of the things we want to do. But we are actively engaging with clients through Lannister Development, lannisterdevelopment.com, on Twitter @LannisterDev. And we are having very interesting discussions across just the most interesting verticals. And I think for Chris and I, that's probably the magic bullet here. We liked a challenge, but we like something new and something fresh and something, so we didn't come to market and say, hey, we're building real estate finance tools on blockchain and that's what we're doing. And, we need X number of millions of dollars to do it with. So, let's build that. We came to market and said, we want to play with all of the verticals. We love the technology. We believe in its core uses within existing business. And so we want to have all of those disparate conversations about all of those use cases and all of those ideas. And so, last night, like I said, I'm here in San Francisco for this event. And, I got to engage with people on so many different ideation, people building applications to use AI that help you do Forex trading, all the way to water infrastructure and swarm robotics and fintech, insurtech, logistics, trucking, shipping, gamification, and so the myriad of really interesting conversations and use cases that we get to review and play with and then work on is really engaging and fulfilling, and it keeps us really at the edge, and that's right where we want to operate.
And it sounds like you can pretty much pick and choose from any industry, right? So you have blockchain is impacting all industries across the board. So it could be somebody who has possibly, say, 10, 15 dental offices across the country.
Yeah.
You could work with that owner.
It could be 10, 15 dental offices across the Rio Grande Valley in South Texas.
Yes.
You can, we have and then they're not, it's a discussion, but we have a gentleman in Hong Kong who has a manufacturing facility in Hong Kong, and he has a manufacturing facility in Thailand, and it's just 2 facilities, but there's an entire supply chain of events that goes between these things, and then another chain of suppliers on either end of that, and then purchasers that he's looking to say, okay, how do I implement this so that we know from source to sale everything that happened within our own ecosystem, right? I'm not even trying to go out and solve somebody else's problems. I'm just trying to manage my own ecosystem and be able to inspect what I expect in real time.
So at the end of the day, is it about just making the whole process, the system, more efficient and also make it more cost effective?
I think for us, that's a really strong part of the value proposition. There's a lot of people I spoke to last night who are still very, anti-Federal Reserve and, cryptocurrency, is the panacea for all these things. And I'm not disagreeing with that. I don't know, right? I have no idea. Right. So I don't try to interject on things I have no idea. Right. What I do know is, from a risk management background and from a business operations background, if I can take a process that used to take us 3 weeks to inspect, and I can inspect it in almost real time, there's a cost savings there, and there's a risk mitigation there. And when a business has the combination of cost savings and risk mitigation, and they have a capital injection cost that is known, then they can do a very basic math problem. What am I going to spend to build or acquire this technology? What is it going to save me in cost? And what is it going to mitigate on my risk factors? And so that's the operating model that we're going after, because we simply believe if cryptocurrency completely removes fiat currency in the next 10 years, cool. We'll hold a bunch of crypto too. Great. But at the end of the day, we really are focused on a use case and an enterprise and business development and deployment model is what we're focused on.
Wonderful. So, this has been such a wonderful discussion. I mean, I met you for the first time, but I feel like, we've known each other for a while, So it's great to talk to you both.
Well, you ask great questions, so that helps.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This can be a little harder, I promise.
It can go sideways.
I'm work in progress. I've had failures too that I tried to learn from.
Yeah, that's the best. That's the best learning. That's the best learning experience. And I don't know who I am without my failures. I don't know who I am without being a father. I don't know who I and all of those pieces. And I think parenthood is a series of failures that is probably one of the toughest ones. I was talking to one of my amazing people the other day who doesn't have kids, and he was like, oh yeah, he's like, I see, you're such a great dad. And I says, well, imagine that your every decision you make has you have no idea what you're doing, and every decision that you make has the potential impact of ruining the life of the person you care most about in the world.
Some pressure there.
Being a CEO is pretty easy after that, I think.
Right. All I know being a dad right now is that I'm not cool right now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. My oldest just turned 13. So I'm really, I think, just starting that part of the cycle.
Get used to it.
Like, wait, what happened? I was relevant like 5 minutes ago. What?
Right. Just go with it. Enjoy it.
Just go with it. Wait, 15 to 25.
Just wait it out.
Just wait it out.
Just hold on a decade. It'll get better.
Exactly, Chris. That's what I've heard too. So I'm counting on that. Guys, it's such a pleasure talking to you both. I would love to have you back, after a few months, talk about your journey. It's just fun for me, and I hope for the audience as well. Are there any final thoughts? Anything that you would like to maybe plug your website, your Twitter handle, something like that?
Sure. You can find us on our website, lannisterdevelopment.com. And there's a lot of information there. And if you're a business and you're looking at these things and you're interested and you just want to have a conversation about it, we've got folks who'd be happy to take that phone call. On Twitter at Lannister NBDR, at Lannister CEO. Chris, what's yours?
C Brown Lannister or something like that.
Something like that, sure. And then obviously on LinkedIn, Lannister Holdings, and we're all over there. But and then we are publicly traded on the OTC market under the ticker symbol NBDR.
Oh, wonderful. And you're both on LinkedIn, I believe, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely connect with you there, and I look forward to making some introductions in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us on. It was a pleasure.
Oh, thank you, guys. Really enjoyed it, and wish you both best of luck, and hope we get to follow up and talk soon, okay?
Thank you, Hassan.
Okay.
Awesome.
Safe
Thank you very
travels
much.
to you both. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.